Right, Metalheads, thanks so much for joining us in another episode of Full Metal Melting Pot. Today's episode, we're not even going to screw around with this one at all. Today's episode is dedicated 100% to the awesome YouTube Red series known as Cobra Kai. Woohoo! So we are going to talk as much as we want about this awesome series that everybody on the panel has watched right now. And speaking of my panel, I'm going to introduce you guys right away. First off, needing no introduction whatsoever, as my partner in Team 80s and my partner pretty much in all of this stuff here, Jeremy the Adam Adams. How you doing, buddy? I know you love this show.
I am so happy right now. This show means more to me than any movie that's been released in the last decade. I cannot tell you how much I love this show. I think the most excited I've ever been is when I texted you when I was at work at like 8 in the morning. I'm like, Sandy, what are you doing for Melting Pot next week? What are you doing for Melting Pot next week? So it was so excited. So
that's not the only time he messaged me.
Oh, have you watched it yet?
And he's like, have you watched it? And I'm like, I got to go and download. I got to go and get it. I got to go and do it. And I watched the first 2 episodes and was like hooked right away. So yeah. And then it took me 2 days. But I got through all of the 10 episodes. But let's talk to our next panelist, Nazario. How you doing, buddy?
Hi guys, I'm doing great. Just like Jeremy, man, I just got hooked right away. And I actually sat down and watched the whole season in one sitting.
Nice.
It was last Saturday. I started about 8 in the morning, finished up around noon.
And I was texting him the whole time. We were talking to each other the whole time that Nazario was watching it.
And I got the bug, so I went home and I started searching and I found all 4 movies on Hulu. And then I watched all 4 movies the rest of the weekend, which might have been a mistake.
All the Karate Kid movies. He was telling me all about them.
Yeah. And it probably was a mistake to watch all 4, but I did do that.
4th one we're retconning right now. Doesn't happen. Done. But the first 2, I understand. Yeah, the 4th one has its spot, I suppose. But all right. And last but certainly not least, my little buddy, Hunter. Buddy, you watched the whole series. You got in under the wire to join our little group here. How you feeling, bud?
Strike hard, strike first, show no mercy. Cobra Kai.
Woohoo! Nice. That's what I love to hear. Perfect. All right, guys, we're gonna jump right into this, and we're gonna go around the way we do Melting Pot is we take some topics. I've got some easy questions that I'm just going to throw out to you guys. I'm going to get your guys' thoughts. Let's try to keep it, because we got some very excited people about this show. But let's try to keep our thoughts so we can share the time with everybody. But we're going to start off here with your overall thoughts on the series, on how it was portrayed on YouTube. The characters and their growth. Just tell us what you thought from the beginning to the end. How did you start, and where did you end up? Were you team Ralph Macchio, or were you team Johnny Lawrence? You know what I mean? We'll start it off with Hunter first. And Hunter, you go ahead, and what were your overall thoughts in the series when you first started it, and how did you end up?
When I first started, first I'm gonna say I'm a huge fan of the first Karate Kid movie. The second one was okay, and then the rest just went down here for me. But the first one always holds a special place in my heart. So coming back and seeing Ralph Macchio and William, I'm sorry, I'm going to say, I don't know if to do
Zabka.
Yeah, to see them come back and play the iconic roles of Daniel and Johnny and Cobra Kai coming back, and just that nostalgia rush that, when the show first started, and I was hooked from the first episode. And then with them bringing the new characters, and it didn't feel any forced, it flowed real smooth. I absolutely loved the series from beginning to end.
Yeah, that's a great point, Hunter, about the build that they had throughout the whole thing. None of the character interactions felt forced. It felt gradual throughout the whole thing. So no, you're absolutely right on that one. I can't hold him back anymore, folks. I gotta give him his time. So Jeremy, from beginning to end, your overall thoughts. How did you start off watching it, and how did you end up watching it?
So for me, I saw the trailer. I saw all the trailers, but there was the main trailer that they did a while back. That got me hooked. I watched that trailer over and over, and I watched like every reaction on YouTube to that trailer. So I thought it was a great concept. I was just hoping that they would pull it off and they would be able to sustain it for 10 episodes. And honestly, when the show started, I wasn't 100% sure. The first 2 episodes, I was like, I like it, but it wasn't, everything that I was hoping for. But, I kept watching. I actually watched the first 2 the first night, and then the next day, like while I was going to work, I started watching 3 and 4. That's when I got hooked, and like I was taking breaks throughout the entire day to try to keep watching it. And I think by the time you get to episode 5, it really kicks into high gear, and it becomes everything that I was hoping it would be from the trailer. It really is. All of these characters that come together, all of the kids that join Cobra Kai that are under Johnny Lawrence's tutelage, and the way that he is this, 80s relic, something I can relate to, very non-PC, kind of the old sort of thoughts, from the old days about how you toughen people up, bringing that to these new age of kids that Hunter probably knows also well, where everything's politically correct. Everything is supposed to be careful of everyone's feelings all the time, but he's not like that. And he tells these kids, the tough things. And I thought those scenes were so enjoyable. It made you like him. It made you enjoy and wrapped up in all of it. But the show is so smart because at the same time, he is still teaching them what he was taught by Kreese. And these are not good messages. Strike hard, show no mercy. The whole time that I was watching the show, I was thinking, yeah, these really, as much as I love this, as much as I like Johnny, these messages that he's teaching them are going to have a cost. Like you can't just tell teenagers this stuff, because teenagers, they don't always take things the right way. You tell them something over and over again, they're going to run with it, and it could change who these kids are. And I thought the show was really brave to have that arc with these characters that we love, and to show the dark side of what they're being taught, and then to bring in Ralph Macchio as Daniel, who at the beginning of the series, he's kind of lost himself. He's this rich guy. He's out of touch. Mr. Miyagi hasn't been around, and he kind of doesn't come off very well at first. But as the show goes on, you see it doesn't matter, because he was taught the right lessons. And at the end of the day, he's going to have the right belief system because of what Mr. Miyagi instilled in him. And he actually takes Robbie, who's Johnny's son, under his tutelage. And Robbie is this street kid, basically. He's dropped out of school, who doesn't have a dad, who's just this messed up kid, and he teaches him the right lessons, and we see his journey. At the same time, we see the journey of the Cobra Kai kids. It's done so perfectly. Each episode is so well paced, and that final episode with that tournament, paying back to the original tournament, the original film, it was just perfect for me. Though every like fight that you get, the way it progresses, was just so well done for television. And yes, we'll talk about it later, but all the nostalgic beats throughout the entire series, if you love the original films, all the little nostalgic things that they do, is just amazing. I watched the series 4 times. I'm starting my 5th rewatch, and my 4th rewatch I watched with my 9-year-old stepson, and he loved it. Like, he's hooked. So nice. I can't say enough.
Awesome. That's you made the perfect said the perfect thing when you were talking about the lessons that Johnny learned so harshly, and the lessons that he's teaching his group of people, but the difference of the group of people that he's training compared to the group of people. But by the end, we see that maybe they weren't so different. Maybe the Cobra Kai that we knew from the very beginning, the series, the very beginning, maybe they were all misfits and people got picked on who found Cobra Kai and gave them the confidence and the attitude as you discussed. So no,
and we find out about Johnny. That's how he was. We never knew that. We never knew that he had this past that we find out about.
And that's right, exactly. So yeah, absolutely, no, perfect points, Jeremy. Nazario, buddy, you watched it. You obviously watched it enough, a couple of times now. So you're next, buddy. What did you think going into the series, and what did you think by the end of it?
I was hopeful that they would make a decent continuation of the story, but when these kind of things happen, you always are a little iffy about it because you don't know how they're gonna pull it off. And at the beginning, like Jeremy said, I think this show probably would have worked perfectly as about 8 episodes, like Stranger Things length. but it is a very good overall. It's kind of meandering a little bit between 3 and 4, but once they get past episode 5, it all kicks on high gear and it gets very good. I really like the growth and the changes throughout the show because you keep balancing out between Daniel's side and Johnny's side because one episode you're like, okay, but Johnny makes some very good points about how he sees things, and the next one, then Daniel comes back and balance it out. So you keep changing sides, and you don't really root for either one fully because they are both doing kind of assy things, like and even with the best intentions, Johnny still is teaching the wrong lessons, which is what Jeremy was saying, because the kids do get something out of it. They stop being beaten in school, they stop getting abused, and they start finding their own self-respect. But then they go way too far with it and start being bullies themselves. I actually liked the turn, but I felt a little forced in the last couple of episodes, the teenager parts. I think it could have been worked out a little more spaced out. It probably would have felt more natural. Also, maybe it's because I watched the whole thing in one sitting, but it felt kind of sudden and abrupt. But other than that, oh man, that final episode and that tournament was amazing, and love the ending. I love how the season ended and opened the door for so many possibilities for next.
Well, we're definitely gonna get to that. I'm glad that you brought that up. We're not going to talk about that particularly at this point. But yeah, you brought up a really good point about the kids getting their self-confidence, and then all of a sudden, self-confidence is one thing, but then when you switch from being the bully to the bulliers, the bullies, then sometimes you're right. You're not necessarily getting the lessons that you're supposed to be getting. And so, no, great point on that one. Okay, so my thoughts overall on the series. I, like Jeremy, saw the trailer, and at first I thought it was a hoax. I thought it was crap. I'm like, no, there's no way this is coming. This is not going to happen. But just for kicks and giggles, I watched the trailer probably 30 or 40 times just because it was Daniel and Johnny, for crying out loud. Are you kidding me? Like, what kid of the 80s hasn't said, man, I wish they had their Rocky moment, just like they bring up in the series. Like, let's just beat up, like, no cameras, no students, nobody around. Let's just go at it. Let's just have a fight. And I loved that part. So for me, finding out that it was real and it was actually going to become something was amazing. I was like, okay. And then you find out that it's this little, mini web series television show, and you're like, that's fantastic. Let's watch it. And then I get into it because Jeremy was just pestering me that day, just like, watch it. Come on, get watching it. And so I said, all right. So I'm going. So then I sat there to my wife's chagrin, and I was sitting there with my headphones on, with my laptop at my table, or at my chair, just watching. And I got through about probably got through the first half of the season, and first 6 episodes I got through in the first day. And I was so intrigued with how it was going, and loved the character development, and loved, how slowly the characters built. Even in a 10 episodes, I loved how they didn't spend too much time on one person and not enough time on everybody got their own arc. Especially like my second favorite character of the new character of the entire series, Hawk. Him
So great.
Him turning into the Dutch of this Karate Kid version was so not seen by me. I was like, I had absolutely no clue he was going to become that badass, and so yeah, it was fantastic. But that's enough for me. I enjoyed the series so much. We're going to get right back into.
I'm sorry, Sandy. Can I have one more second here?
Yeah.
Chance the Titan Ellison wasn't able to be here tonight, but he actually wrote something and wanted me to read if he could, because he too binge watched the show and loves it. So he said,
"Here comes Chance."
This is Chance. Basically, I love the show. I think it does a great job at really fleshing out Johnny. It makes you realize how someone given that kind of training could become a bully. Zabka and Machio were great. The kids were all awesome, especially Robbie, Miguel, and Hawk. I like how in the beginning Robbie was the bad guy and Miguel was the good guy, and by the end it was the other way around. The last 3 episodes were just heart-pounding, edge of your seat, exhilarating, and I cannot wait to see more in season 2. That's Chance.
Absolutely good. If you're going to put it into a couple of sentences, that's what it's right there. So, okay, so we'll move on to the second topical question that I have about it. What was your favorite moment of the entire series? Favorite moment, number one. No special mentions. No. What was your favorite moment of the entire show?
So easy.
And yes, this is a. By the way, I may not have mentioned this.
Yeah.
This is a full-blown spoiler episode of Cobra Kai. So whatever you hear from this moment on, consider yourself warned. Take a break. Come back after you've watched the series. But go ahead. Let's start off with Jeremy. Jeremy, what's your number one famous moment?
It's really easy. It's like I didn't even have to think twice about it. It is the series of sequences in the 9th episode where Johnny and Daniel get together.
Oh man, you took mine.
And they hang out and they actually kind of get to know each other a little bit. They go to Daniel's old apartment from the first movie that we all remember so well.
Cool.
Look at that pool. There's actually water in the pool. Oh my God, it was so amazing. And then Johnny talks Daniel into going to the bar. They sit down at the bar and they start talking about Allie, and it's just incredible. It's so gratifying. It's so nostalgic. But those two actors really show in those scenes just how well they know these characters, the chemistry the two of them have built over the years, and just really how great they are in the series. And that for me was kind of why we came to this show. We cared about those two characters. You know, we wanted to see how they had changed, how they had grown. And actually, I think at that point in the series, you're actually wanting the two of them to stop being, enemies. You're kind of wanting them to maybe come together in some way. And how good is Ralph Macchio's the woman who plays his wife just saying, like, seriously? Oh yes,
like she's such a good facilitator.
She's great. And the scene at the beginning where she's like, "Oh great, two grown men are gonna kick each other into the pool."
Yeah,
like that part's great too. But yeah, once they actually go off and they're at the bar, those are the scenes for me.
Yep.
That was really what. Of course, I love all the action. I love all the stuff with the kids. There are other honorable mentions that I'd have, but for me, that's what we came to the show for, was for those two guys connecting, and it was just so well done. And all the stuff about Allie, I think I really honestly think they're going to reach out to Elizabeth Shue for season 2, and I think they teed that off perfectly in those scenes. So
yeah, we're going to get into that at the end of the discussion of what we think is going to come up next. But
and Johnny saying, "What's Facebook?" and Ralph Macchio going, "Really, Johnny?" Like really, we're Johnny? All thinking.
Yep, exactly. All right, he's been silenced enough over there. I can hear him. Laughing through his microphone that's muted right now. But Hunter, favorite moment of the entire series? Make sure to unmute yourself.
All right, this is so hard because there's so many great moments, but I'm going with when Robbie, who at the time is working for LaRusso's, and his buddies are like, give me the code and go, and he refuses. He says no, and then he ends up using the karate that Daniel taught him to basically positioning them in front of the camera and then busted. Yeah. I love that because it was the seamless transition of Robbie from that bad boy, do we like him, to no, this is our hero, this is the guy we're rooting for. And I absolutely loved the action, the subtle change, and just the humor, and the really him outsmarting them is what I loved about it.
Well, and I just have to throw the little detail of, you can see the look in his eyes. This is the first time he's used the karate in a fight. And he's like, there's the look of surprise. Wow, this stuff actually works. I thought that was great too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a great point that you make it up, because I do think that was Robbie's hero moment. It was his, I'm not going to be this dick that I'm supposed to turn into because that's what my dad is. Somebody's actually caring about me, and I can't do this to that person. So I'm going to take a beating, but I'm going to make it worthwhile. And he makes it worthwhile. And I mean, we'll see what the future holds for Robbie when it comes to those thugs. But I'm hoping that it gets better and better as it goes on, and his story arc goes. But that's a great, great moment, and I'm glad you brought it up. Nazario, I know that I'm glad that everybody left this one, because I know that you're going to be bringing this one up. So it's okay, because my favorite moment isn't this one. So I'm giving it to you. Nazario, what's your favorite moment of the series?
Jeremy took my actual.
Yeah, I
favorite.
took it. I took his. I'm sorry. What's your second, buddy?
That episode 9, the whole episode 9 is my favorite episode.
It's my
because
favorite,
it's the one that actually deals with the repercussions of the story of the people we care about 34 years ago.
Yeah.
But since he's already taken, I'm gonna go with something else. I really, really like the scene where Daniel goes to the cemetery to talk to the grave of Miyagi, because he was kind of lost at that point. He was trying to use the things he was used to now with his money to try to fix things, and maybe it was not really the right way. And he felt a little lost, and he wanted some guidance. So he just went to talk to his friend. Because the thing I got from rewatching the whole movies after the show is how deep their friendship truly becomes. They stop being teacher and student, and they just become equals at some point.
Yeah.
And they become partners in the third movie with the business and everything. So they are actually real friends. And at that moment that he feels kind of a little lost, he just goes back to his friend, who sadly is no longer with him, but it still gives him something that he uses forward to change the way he's being handled in the situation. And I think it's a very tender moment, bringing back the guy who was actually the heart of the whole trilogy.
You're 100% right, Nazario. That's a great moment, and I will not deny that I teared up during that.
Every time I watch it.
Yeah, and I loved it because the word you're looking for is balance. If you go through the entire series, every time Daniel hits a roadblock, what does Mr. Miyagi do? Remember, Daniel's son, balance. And he has to find that center again. He has to find that warm spot, that balance spot where he can, not be negative, not be all. And that him remembering that stuff and sitting at that gravestone and getting all those flashbacks. It's an amazing moment in the series, and one that I really think changes the trajectory of where the rest of the series went after that moment. So great moment. So it's my turn for my most famous moments right now, and I'm surprised that nobody else has brought this up. But it's not my favorite moment either. But we will talk about it a little later. But my favorite moment, and this is going to surprise a lot of you, was a real dick move. The very first fight of the tournament. And Johnny whispers over to Miguel's ear, and the next thing we see is the
first move of the tournament. Crane move.
In the face. It doesn't even look like it takes him any effort whatsoever to do whatsoever. And they just look back at him and they smile. And I'm just like, wow, you are such a dick. You're just the biggest dick ever. I cannot believe that. Why, you little son of a, and I couldn't stop laughing at that moment. I had to rewind it 20 or 30 times and watch it.
It's so good.
It is my favorite moment of the series, just because I thought it took such balls to do, even from the filmmakers and the writers, everybody. It was just balls. It was, at that moment, you knew there were no gloves. They were off, and you better bring it or else it's over. So that was my favorite moment. I know we have a ton more favorite moments.
Yeah, we do.
But we're gonna get to we're gonna get to them hopefully in our next topic. Our next topic is surprises. What surprised you in this series? What was something or some things that happened or were done that you thought was very surprising that you didn't think was coming? And we are going to start with Nazario this time.
We said full spoilers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, full spoilers, baby. You heard it. Spoilers.
Okay. I was actually surprised in a good way, because I was thinking they were going to go the other way with the end of the tournament, the final fight.
Yeah.
They have been building the whole change between Robbie and Miguel, which I'm not really full into it. I really like Miguel. I like his character a lot more than I like Robbie at this point. And they were making him the villain by the end. So when Daniel goes to the locker room and they help him because Robbie's hurt and everything, he comes back. I was like, oh my God, they're just going to let him win. They're going to have their happy ending and whatever. And nope, Miguel kicks his ass like he should. And that surprised me, because I thought they were going the whole other way. And honestly, it was a really good surprise. I was very, very glad that they went that way.
You thought they were going to cop out.
Yeah, I thought it was going to cop out.
Yeah.
Nazario, you aren't the only one. When I saw Robbie walk in and he was an independent, and he walked in, I knew, okay, he's there to prove a point. And I love that they pretty much stayed to script. Hawk being the bad guy, Miguel continuing, the bad play, even though Johnny's like, no, we don't do this, but they just went out and did it anyway because no mercy, no mercy. And for it to turn out that way, I thought that because the story was so much Johnny's story from Johnny's perspective, that it should have ended exactly the way that it did end. But it brings up so much that nobody would have thought that. Of course, Daniel's son's going to win. He wins all the time.
Robbie even does the two-legged kick that nobody else could have done before. I was like, oh, he did the kick. So he's going to win.
I jumped out of my chair when he did that. I was like, he freaking did it. So I was so impressed. But no, that's a great surprise moment when they went with Miguel for the winner on that one. It surprised me. So. Jeremy, let's go to you. Surprise moment of the series. What surprised you the most?
I don't know that there was anything plot-wise that really surprised me that much. I mean, I was kind of thinking it was going to be Miguel. I knew that Miguel and Sam, I knew they were going to get together. I knew they were probably going to break up. I mean, you could see a lot of that stuff coming. For me, if I was going to talk about surprises, it'd be more of just those little moments that just blindsided me. When Sam and Miguel go to, I'm like, are they going to go to golf and stuff? Are they going to go to golf and stuff? And they went to golf and stuff, and they played the exact same song. I was just running in circles, just going nuts when that happened. So it was like moments like that. For me, the single funniest, most brilliant moment in the entire series is when Robbie is injured and Daniel goes to do the medic, and then he goes medic. That was genius. Did not see that joke coming. Just genius. Great.
So good.
But I think number one for me is at the end of the series, I'm like, okay, they're wrapping everything up. Where are they going to go? And Daniel takes Robbie to Mr. Miyagi's old house and says, this is Miyagi-Do. This is where we're putting our dojo. And it's just, can you have a better setup for season 2? And I'm really just trying not to cry just talking about it. It was just the absolute perfect cap to the season. And then, you get the final stinger after that, which, I love. But, I kind of saw the final stinger a bit. I mean, they had laid, some hints for that. But the Miyagi, his house, seeing Daniel's old car still there, and the fact that that's going to be where the new generation of Miyagi-Do is going to be, that was probably, I didn't quite see that, and that was like the awesome thing for me.
Perfect. Hunter, buddy, surprise moment of the series.
Okay, so I have two.
Okay.
One is how much I like the surprise character that I end up loving that I think I would not love was Hawk. Because at first, he was lip, and then he was just the outcast. And then when Johnny gets in his face, he's like, you got to toughen up. You got to flip the script. He comes in with the mohawk, the back bird tattoo. He's like, flipping the script.
What the
Gets the hot popular girl.
Yeah, and the hot popular girl. Moonrise or moonshine?
Moon. Yeah.
One of my surprising character, the characters that I didn't think I would love, I end up loving Hawk. So that's one of them. And second, how they flipped the script on Johnny's perspective of what happened.
Oh, yes, that moment. When he tells the story. When
he's talking to Miguel and he's like, watch out for the Sam and watch out with the LaRussos. Because he goes into, I was at the beach and the dude took a punch me, which going back through, I remember I was like, yeah, he didn't really do anything. And Johnny or Daniel sucker punched him. And it's just, that perspective. And you look at it, you're like, maybe Johnny was right in some of these plot points. It's kind of weird because I always saw, I was Team Daniel, and then this made me kind of have that inch of maybe Johnny wasn't that wrong in his thinking.
I mean, we still see it now. Daniel, still this cocky, kind of hot-headed guy that he was in that movie, and you can kind of see that Johnny still has that perspective.
And you can,
because I saw the movie last weekend too, and there's a couple of moments there where Daniel gets what he deserves, because there's probably 2 moments in the movie where he incites the situation. Johnny has pretty selective memory, and he tells his best version of the story. But there's a couple of moments where Daniel gets what he's coming to him.
Yeah, but that's the thing. But that's the thing that Hunter's making the good point on, and you're all absolutely right on the other things. But I think that it was fun to see Johnny's version of how that story is. But then, as you're following Johnny's story and you see how peer pressure really affected him in his life, how did that affect Daniel in that particular moment? He had already bragged to some of his friends that he was kicking soccer around, that he knew karate, that he could defend himself, and then he gets the perfect opportunity to show himself, to show off. And what does he do? He falls for peer pressure. But don't get anything wrong. And then he sticks the hose. The Cobra Kai guys weren't bugging him. They weren't doing anything. He just wanted to get a little bit of just a needle in there and put the hose in there.
And we were watching the movie. We were kind of following along the movie, but Johnny says months had gone by. Like, we hadn't even talked to each other in months, and then we're at a party, and he just douses me in the bathroom. Like, that's a detail we didn't know before.
That's right.
It puts things in a little different context.
It sure does. Mm-hmm. All good ones, guys. So I'm gonna go with my with my 2 right now, and I'm gonna say my funny one right now because I thought it was absolutely badass. I can't remember her character name now, but the glasses wearing girl that goes over to Cobra Kai to learn how to
Aisha.
Yeah. So
Aisha. I know where you go with this.
So she has 2 moments, and that's in the dojo the first time when like Miguel punches her and she goes down hard, and then she gets up and absolutely clobbers him, and Johnny's like, she's a natural
Cobra.
And that's great. The second moment with her was the
front wedgie.
The front wedgie on Miss
the ultimate front wedgie.
And takes her off the ground with it. I was like, oh man, that is the best ever. But my number 1 surprise moment of this, and it wasn't as much of a surprise as it was an expected surprise that I was hoping for, and that is Sensei Kreese showing up at of the things at the end of the series with his maniacal smile and the cigar stick. And I kind of agree with Christian Harloff on this one when I watched his take on it. I hope that they don't bring the over the top Kreese back. I hope they bring the Karate Kid 1 Kreese back, where he's just badass and believes in what he's doing, and that's it. I don't want the
I like that
Kreese. I don't want that guy from number 3. I want first Karate Kid and beginning of Karate Kid Part 2 Kreese. That's the guy that I want. So for him coming back,
he was a little goofy, Sandy. He was a little goofy in that one, but not as goofy. That's true.
Yeah.
No. And I'm hoping not. And I'm hoping, praying, fingers crossed that they get a handle on him and say, dude, relax it. Just Kreese, get in there. Because you can't recast.
I want to say something a little bit that I forgot to mention before.
Yeah.
Well, about Kreese, that is the worst guy. Every time he's in trouble, he fakes his death. This is the second time he fakes his death on the whole series.
Nazario brought that up to me too. That's really funny. I hadn't realized that.
No, absolutely.
And the other thing that it surprised me, but it's really stupid for my part because I speak Spanish, so I should have known. The name of the episode is Esqueleto, which means skeleton in Spanish. And I was surprised when the guy pulls out the old classic skeleton costume to the Halloween party.
Oh, yeah.
It still surprised me. And I was like, damn, the freaking episode is called Skeleton. What were you thinking? That was awesome.
Awesome. All right, guys, those are some really, really good surprises that we just mentioned right now. What we're going to go into, and it's going to be a real short segment because I don't want to harp too much on it and stuff like that, but I do want to bring up that if anybody had did anybody have any issues with it? Were there any glaring things that you were upset about or just had an issue with that you wish they'd changed? And what do you think they should have changed it to? So we'll start this one off with Jeremy. Jeremy, what did you think? I know you loved it so much, but did you have any issues?
What the hell is with Daniel's kid? His
Yes.
son?
The son, right?
Yeah.
Like,
What is that?
Hitting me with that guy?
The most useless, most annoying character ever.
I
And
just
I
want
understand. I
Nolan.
kind of understand what they're going with it because he's kind of representing the kids today that are inactive. They don't exercise. They're on video games all day long. But he wasn't a character. He was just like an annoyance, and didn't really have an arc. I mean, maybe a tiny bit when he starts kind of getting into the karate at the end, but not really. And yeah, they got to do something. They got to do something with that character. I mean, they got to make that a character because it's just he's adding nothing at this point. The only scene with him I liked was when he gets into it with Johnny and they're giving each other a hard time. Like, maybe if they can have more scenes with him and Johnny, maybe use him more as a comedic foil. But at this point, it's just a worthless and kind of disappointing part of the show for me. Everything else that you guys saying that maybe Miguel's transformation was too fast, stuff like that. I don't have any problems with any of that. And I think the more you rewatch it, the more you kind of see the foreshadowing. Like there are some moments where it kind of foreshadows Miguel's turn. So for me, the only thing that really brings it down for me, like especially when I rewatch, is that kid because he's just worthless.
And you're absolutely right. That was one of mine too. But and don't forget, right? We just talked about it with the Karate Kid that there's time jumping. That there's months ahead of time. So Miguel's turn is just as dramatic as Daniel's turn into a very, very honorable fighter, and we see the exact same thing with Miguel where he went from being a super nice guy to then all of a sudden just being this badass by the tournament. Time has passed, right? So like it's not an immediate term. So
I would also argue that he wasn't given the skills to he wasn't given the kind of the skills to deal with things that happen in his life. He didn't have a father. And the only father he had at this point was Johnny, who's, Johnny's kind of a jerk in some ways. And he's got a girlfriend all of a sudden. He has to deal with, with the jealousy, with insecurity, with not having really been taught how to deal with things. And he doesn't, react to it well. And I thought there was some, I was kind of like that. Like, my first girlfriend and stuff that I went through when I was a teenager, I didn't do the right things. I did stupid things because I was a kid. And I thought, that it worked for me. But that damn son is useless.
Okay, so I'm gonna go next on this one. For me, I had a couple of beefs about the series, and I'll start off with the one that bugged me the most was I don't understand how Miguel learned karate, because every time we see Miguel, he's doing crap all by himself, and Johnny's in the in the back room sipping on a Coors Banquet, and he comes out every once in a while and gives him a pointer. But as far as I'm concerned, the only things that Miguel took from Johnny were, strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir. And that was it. And he learned pretty much all by himself. So I'm sitting there going, okay, that's fine. And the same thing goes with Robbie. Like Robbie damn near taught himself, and he just had this natural. And same with Miguel. They both have this natural ability, and that's what I like about those two characters being at each other now, that they're so naturally gifted that it's going to be the better teacher who eventually ends up winning the whole thing. So it was my biggest beef was Miguel's, complete awesomeness come tournament time when he barely had any teaching time whatsoever. So they portrayed. I know we saw the lineups and everybody ki-eyeing and stuff like that, but in the span of a few months, he's winning the All Valley tournament. And I get that they're paralleling that to Daniel's, fast incline to things. So once again, that natural ability, I love to see. I also, Johnny, I loved Johnny's arc. I really did. Johnny's reaction after the tournament surprised me. I could see that he could see in his own head, which he wasn't in very much, that, you know, because he's a very visceral person. He's very much outside of his head, just a go, go, go kind of person. But you could see it in his head. He's like remembering. He's like, "Holy crap, that's what he made. That's what he made Dutch do. Holy crap, that's what he made my other buddy do. Holy crap, that's what he made me do. Holy crap, I've turned into Kreese." And just as he's realizing that, it's too late. And then so I'm going to be very much interested because it might turn into one of my favorite moments. But I really wanted a ninja kick out of nowhere from Johnny as soon as Kreese came out of the shadows. I just wanted a yeah and a beat down of Kreese. So I hope that happens sometime down the road, but I'm not holding my breath. But yeah, him getting to that too late was one of the things that I was a little bit disappointed in, but it's very, very small, very, very small stuff that I was upset about in this. Let's go over to Hunter this time. Hunter, you get the next shot. Well, what if any issues did you have?
Okay, I'm going to bring up something from the positives real quick because this does tie into my negatives a little bit. I love Sam. I love the Sam character, you know, her and the karate with Daniel and all that stuff. But the one thing, and this is probably a nitpick, but I've seen it a lot in TV shows and movies, and it really kind of gets on my nerves, is when Miguel shows up to the LaRusso's house, and he goes in the back, and he sees that Sam is with Robbie, and, you know, immediately that stuff, and then she's, you know, he sees him with her again, and just all that stuff of like, oh, you know, they're going to break up because of this. Something that seems so cliche that I've seen so many times in other TV shows and movies. I was just like, and like I wasn't upset about it. It's just something that kind of irked me a little bit.
Well, you did see it in another movie. It was called Karate Kid.
The exact same thing happened. Yeah,
exact same thing. So no, you did see it, but you saw it in the movie of this whole series. So you're not wrong.
Yeah.
And again, Miguel's turn was a little off-putting for me at first, but I kind of understand, you know, they do time jump a bit. But again, I was so used to rooting for Miguel and rooting for him to be our protagonist. And then when they kind of cut that off, it was real jarring to me. But, you know, small nitpicks. I still love the show. Nothing that really was like, I hate this, you know?
I'm really glad you brought up the Sam thing because I really liked her character and I liked her arc as well, how she went from, you know, daddy's little girl to, you know, super popular, you know, I'll shit on people's heads and not care about it, to then coming back, you know, to not necessarily being daddy's little girl, but being her own person now and now moving forward. And I definitely agree with everybody who said it. And I know Jeremy had said it to me too, is that we're expecting the second entry into the Miyagi-Do karate to be Daniel's daughter. So I'm looking forward to that arc and seeing how that goes. But Nazario, real quick, what if any issues did you have with this series?
Okay, since I'm going last, of course the things have been mentioned before, but Daniel's kid is the worst. Daniel's kid is the worst. That is a useless character. He makes no sense. I hate him. And the show would be better without him. Let's hope they find some use for him in the future. What Hunter said was my second point. And I think it's the TV-ishness of the thing. You know, all those problems that happen on TV shows and also in romantic comedies where everything can be solved if people just talk to each other. Like, oh, I saw her with this guy. And then he comes back, but he's drunk now, so it doesn't work that way. And misunderstandings that really are like children's stuff. And like when she throws the guy's popcorn in the movies and he starts telling everybody that she was, you know, doing something else. Well, that kind of diminishes because the rest of the show is so good that it kind of avoids those kind of stuff. I get it because teenagers are like that and they're dumb, they're kids, fine, but it still annoys me. And one thing you haven't mentioned, which is a pet peeve of mine, is Miguel's grandma. She only speaks in Spanish because she is a Latin woman. Why does she speak broken Spanish? I speak Spanish. I understand what she's saying, and she is speaking broken Spanish. Get somebody who can really speak Spanish. That's just dumb, and they do it all the time in movies and TV shows.
I'm stopping you right there. Grandma was badass throughout the entire thing.
It's one of those things that, you know,
Russian in a Spanish accent, and I could have cared less. It was all what was in the subtitles. It didn't matter. She was.
The subtitles were great, but she was not saying what the subtitles were saying.
Yeah. Can I bring up my tiniest nitpick since Nazario brought up his?
All right.
Early on in the show, there's a confrontation between Daniel and Johnny, and they both walk on the mats in the dojo with their shoes on. No one ever would walk on. I was in martial arts for many years. You never disrespect that space by walking on the mats with shoes. All right, there you go.
There you go. All right, guys. All right, so we're reaching the end of our discussion today. We got one last topic to talk about. It's going to include two things. It's going to include what you expect to see going forward for season 2, and a rating of the show in its entirety out of 5. So, what to expect, and your final thoughts, including a score out of 5. We are going to go with, but I want you guys to keep it fast.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about this for 90 hours.
I know, I'm trying.
Oh, you guys are all doing great. I'm really impressed with it. Nazario, we're going to go to you first. What can we expect from season 2, and your final thoughts?
Okay, I expect Chris taking back the Cobra Kai from Johnny. I think he's going to start feeling like the student again. And for the first half of the season, he's probably going to keep spreading the wrong message because his teacher is now back. And some people are going to start figuring it out, maybe defecting from the team. Not Hawk. Hawk's going to be full Cobra Kai. That guy is awesome. And then somewhere in the middle of the story, maybe Johnny's going to see the light. Not quite join Daniel, because he's never be gonna be friends with Daniels, but maybe change the perspective and try to gain his dojo back and make it the right way this time.
Nice.
About a score, I would give this 4.5 out of 5. I think it's really, really good. The things we've you could see the things we don't like. It's kind of a nitpick mostly, and I think still that they could have done it probably in 2 episodes shorter, and it would be tighter. Get rid of the kid, and it would probably be one of my perfect shows for this year. But as it stands, it's almost there, but not quite. Also, one quick thing: I just realized that Miyagi had a bunch of cars that he collected when he was in the first Karate Kid movie. Maybe that's where Daniel got the idea to get into the car business.
Oh, absolutely. That's without a doubt.
That's all that was. Yeah, absolutely. All right. And 4.5, You mean that's a great score out of that one, Nazario. That's awesome. Hunter, go ahead. I want what do we expect to see from season 2? What do you want to see happen in season 2? And what's your score out of 5?
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of agree with Nazario here, where in season 2 I expect Kreese to take over Cobra Kai, kick Johnny out. Johnny's gonna go either help teach his son Robbie under the dojo with him, and they'll create a bond, and then finally Johnny will have the fight with Kreese to gain control of Cobra Kai. I see them having either a tournament bout or just having a brawl to finally end it, and we'll see Johnny's overarching story pretty much end. My rating, I'm going to give it a 4.8 out of 5. Nitpicks, I love everything about the show, minor nitpicks here and there, but overall, I binged it in 2 days. I had so much fun going back to, Karate Kid lore, and all the characters just made me feel like a kid again.
Nice. That's a great take on that. I'll be interested to see if you're right. You're right about what's going to happen. But great thoughts on that, Hunter. Thanks for joining us today. That's awesome. Now I don't know whether or not to go for next or to go last, but I think I'm going to go next because I want to give the man the legend himself, the last shot on this one. What do I expect to see on this one? I expect to see exactly what you guys have seen. I think that Kreese owns Cobra Kai, because if you remember from Karate Kid Part 3, Terry, Mr. Silver, bought Cobra Kai and gave it to him. So he owns it. So I think that Johnny is going to get kicked out, and I think he's going to want Flounder for a little bit. But what I actually think is going to happen is that Kreese is going to pervert Cobra Kai so much again that it's going to be Miyagi-Do against Cobra Kai. But Miyagi-Do is going to have to evolve. And in order to evolve, Miyagi-Do is going to have to get a little bit more aggressive. And how do you get more aggressive? If you team up with your arch nemesis. And, and now Daniel and Johnny are now co-teachers, co-senseis at Miyagi-Do karate. And they learn from each other. Johnny isn't trying to make everybody a Billy Badass, and Daniel's not trying to make everybody do kata. They're melding them two together so you can defend and have power. So that's what I think is going to happen. And then it's just going to be a continual fight against Kreese, depending on how long he stays in the series. But I think the whole series, or the whole season, possibly the next season, is going to be a gradual build up to that last fight between Johnny and Kreese, which will then do whatever it does. But let's see what happens. My rating overall for this show, I'm going to give it a solid 4.3 out of 5 stars. I loved it. I thought that I loved the way that it went. I love that we saw it from a different angle, a different perspective through somebody else's eyes. I'm so thankful that we got another Johnny Lawrence, not just the one we grew up with, this egotistical little prick that just had everything handed to him. I'm so happy that we got to learn about him. So I'm looking forward to seeing his journey continue. But yeah, 4.3 star out of 5 stars for me. And now I hand it over to my friend, the Atom. Go for it, buddy. Give us your final thoughts. Give us your what to expect and your point score out of 5.
It's kind of a little similar along the lines of what you guys said. I think that Terry Silver and Kreese do own the Cobra Kai name, so they're going to basically legally say to Johnny, you've got to, we really own this thing, so you got to let us in, and you got to go along with what we want. I think it's going to be too much. Johnny's gonna want to get out of it. He's going to go off on his own. I think there is going to be an alliance at a certain point in the next season between Daniel and Johnny out of necessity, and I think Johnny's whole mission is going to be to get Cobra Kai back. I think if you look at his arc in season 1, it was really a big part of what season 1 was Johnny overcoming a bad father with his stepfather, which we didn't mention, played by Ed Asner. And now he stands up to the Ed Asner character and overcomes that. And I think season 2 is going to be him standing up to the other and overcoming the other bad father, which is Kreese. So I think that's really going to be the arc. But I do think at the end of it, he is going to get Cobra Kai back. And, the rivalry between Daniel and Johnny will still stand. They might team up for a while, train together for a while. But at the end, Johnny is going to go back, overcome Kreese, and get Cobra Kai back. And, we'll see, some new conflict will come up at the end of season 2 to set up season 3. So I think that's how it's going to go. The other kind of big prediction I have is that the star of Miyagi-Do now is going to be Sam. I think Sam is going to be the rising star. I think she's going to overshadow Robbie and everyone else and be their number 1 star. And I think there's going to be a new character introduced who Kreese is going to bring in, who's going to be the new star of Cobra Kai. I think he's going to overshadow Miguel and everyone there, take over, and I think my prediction is it's going to be related to somebody. I think it actually could be Mike Barnes' son.
I was just
Mike Barnes was, because he was the villain in Karate Kid 3, Daniel's rival. I think it could be his son or some character, along those lines. And I think the big finale is going to be that character versus Samantha. And I think that Miguel, at a certain point in the season, is going to go to Miyagi-Do. I think he's going to leave Cobra Kai, go to Miyagi-Do, try to, rekindle with Sam and recover who he is, while this new a-hole becomes the big shining star in Cobra Kai. So, and I also, Elizabeth Shue episode, There's going to be like a bottle episode with Elizabeth Shue where they connect with her, reminisce, and she has some pearls of wisdom. And hopefully, I'm praying to God, a Terry Silver cameo at some point. So
Yes,
there you go.
All right, Jared, give me your score, buddy.
Oh, my score. Look, in my heart, it's a 5 because I love it. Every time I watch it, I love it. But hey, I got to be honest. It's a low budget show. It's not on the quality of something like Breaking Bad or something like that in terms of just the production, some of the acting. But I still love it. And I think it was as well, like better done than I could have ever hoped. So I'm going to give it a 4.8 along with Hunter and just knock it a little bit for, some production values. And I'm not going to knock it for the Daniel Son character too much, but maybe a tad there. So I'll land at a 4.8 on it.
Nice. All right, guys. Thank you so much for this discussion talk. Oh, yeah, sure, Hunter. What?
Sorry. I do want to bring up another theory I had, which was I feel Miguel's going to stay with Cobra Kai, even though Kreese is involved. I feel like his loyalty to Cobra Kai is still there.
He's going to go full bad, eh?
He could, but my theory is that
versus Sam.
Yeah, my theory is though that there's going to be a new star, and that like I said, that's going to overshadow Miguel. And I still think that he really, in his heart, is a good kid. So I think Johnny is going to bring him out, but we'll see. It could go either way.
All good points, guys. All right, we are going to bring this conversation to an end, unfortunately. I wish we could go on for another hour talking about everything that we love, because there was so much that we didn't hit on in this discussion that I really wanted to, but we would literally just go watch it, guys.
Yes, please.
Go watch it.
Go watch it.
Go watch it, and you'll understand what we're talking about. You'll get it all. Nazario, Hunter, Jeremy, my buddies, thank you so much for being here today. That's been another edition of Full Metal Melting Pot, guys. And as always, see you later.